What's going on?
What is up?
Episode 21. I got ahead of myself. 21 of Books and
21.
Bourbon.
We are now officially old enough to drink, as we joked about last week. So 21 weeks going strong.
21st birthday here.
That's it. Gonna have a rager.
It'll be fun.
Well, David jumped in real quick. He's out having fun on a golf course and popped into our stream during the pre-sound check, whatever, and just literally jumped in, had a giant glow on his face, bragged about the golf course he was on, and was like, "Sorry guys, I gotta go hit my shot." So, David, cheers to you. I'm a little jealous that you're out there, but it looked like a beautiful day, and only you could get away with that because if I tried, my team would boycott me. So, congrats, David.
I think he should have just tried to join us from the golf course and put it down to take his swings and pick the phone back up. It would have made for a great show.
We could switch this to golf and bourbon.
Books and golf, bourbon and golf, bourbon while golfing.
Bourbon still has to be involved, but we digress. So, welcome to those of you who are new. This is episode 21 of Books and Bourbon. I'm your co-host, Caleb Roth, along with my co-host, Matthew Osborne. And our third leg of our fearsome trio is MIA today, but David Chung at Dave Can Read. I'll shout out his Instagram. But we are excited to have, we've got a pretty special guest today. It's a gentleman with a great big heart, and he shares a bit. He's a bit elusive, but if you know him, if you've met him, then you will remember him. So we're excited to have him on the show. But first, again, this is the show that's mostly about books, primarily selling books on the interwebs, primarily Amazon, eBay, and some in-person type stuff, and a little bit about bourbon. It is episode 21. I'm not drinking today. I've got a volleyball tournament after this, but our friends Dennis and Renee sent along a bottle of Willet Pot Still. Matthew, I think you've had this.
Oh, that's nice. I don't have that one.
I've actually not enjoyed this bottle particularly yet. I've had some of the Willet Rye, kind of the family bottle type stuff. This is kind of their entry level type stuff, but apparently it's really, really good. It's got some good reviews. So they sent that up. We hung out with them in Atlanta, and I think their son works in the alcohol distribution game, and so they were able to hook us up with something. So thanks, Dennis and Renee. If you're watching, it was fun to meet you in Atlanta a couple of weeks back, and of course, thank you for the gift. Conveniently, I live in Indiana, and the rest of my team lives in different states, so I'm just going to have to enjoy this one for them. I'm drinking Celsius again. We should probably see if they'll sponsor us. This is like the third or fourth episode. It's just an energy drink, got some natural caffeine, and it tastes good. And I don't know, it's like a soda. So that's what I'm drinking. Matthew, you got anything fun over there?
I've just got a beer today. I've got a Golden Road IPA. I think it's out of LA is where Golden Road Brewery comes from, but they're right on IPA. Just a nice, refreshing IPA for the afternoon here in Arizona where it's only 1 o'clock.
Beautiful.
So,
well, yeah. we won't judge. We typically like to talk Amazon updates or news. Fortunately, nothing really new to report. There will be some Q4 storage type fees coming into play. And then more specifically, there's going to be the FBA fees go up about 35 cents starting October 15. For those of you that use any of the IQ brands of software, we'll be implementing those fees starting October 1st to give you a head start. If you'd like to add those in now on your own, you can simply lower your triggers by 35 cents or raise your buy cost by 35 cents and roughly come to the same spot. So if you want to factor those in early, restock limits are still all the rage. And by all the rage, I mean none of the rage. But we did a whole episode last week. We actually shared a tool that we built for you about a year ago. And of course, because Amazon likes to repeat things, it became more relevant. So if you missed that, episode 20, Books and Bourbon, check it out on YouTube. That one's made for watching. So if you do listen to the pod, make sure you head over to YouTube and then check out restock.thebookflipper.com for more info. That's a good one to help stay ahead of Amazon's changes. Matthew, you missed the tee up last week, so we're going to try again. We've got some not necessarily Amazon news, but industry news.
it should be Amazon news.
It should be. They should be put it in there for us.
Yeah, we're bringing back live events, but this time it's special because it's a specific Scout IQ Summit. It'll be in Las Vegas, October 14 and 15. It'll be a great time for anyone who wants to come out. You can get tickets right here and find out more at scoutiq.co/summit. That'll bring up all the info. We're going to have some fun Friday night, which is the 14th. For those that buy the early bird tickets and have the add-on there, we're going to rent out a whole escape room for, I think, like 2 hours. We'll get to able to go to the escape room together, meet and greet, have some great networking time, go out for dinner that night, and then we'll have some speakers lined up for Saturday. We have a good relaxed venue set up, so we'll have some speakers come through. Have we released the whole list of speakers? We have, haven't we?
We have, although one was a late ad.
Late ad is Rakin? Was Rakin the late ad?
As I'm sneezing over here, wait, I'm trying to find the mute real quick. Yeah, so Steve Rakin will be our third speaker.
Okay.
Avery Martin, Romer the Roamer will be number 2, and then Franklin Media. So Michael Fordnall will be speaker number 3. And then I think you've got a couple buddies speaking as well, just on business adjacent things. So,
no, it'll be a good time. So we've done a lot of events in the past called Turn the Page. Some of you guys, I'm sure, have attended those events. And you get a lot of great information from the speakers and from the event itself. But almost always everyone says the best thing they get from these events is the opportunity to network with other sellers, whether they're sellers smaller than you or sellers bigger than you. You're going to be able to learn something from them. You'll make friendships. And most people do not like talking about used books and selling on Amazon. So to be surrounded by a bunch of people that sell books and sell on Amazon is just a great thing. And it's a fun time, and friendships are made every single event that we have. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a good time. scoutiq.co/summit. Get your tickets early. The prices will go up as we get closer to the date. But I think early bird pricing is still live on the site, right?
It is. Yeah, I don't like to play games. Really, that's the price we want to charge. But as we get closer to the end, we will start bumping that up, just because that's how sales work. We've sold 20 tickets already, and with speakers and guests and whatnot, we're going to be north of 25 already. We're going to try and keep this around 50 to 60 people. So we do expect this to sell out. If you're on the fence, if you're thinking about it, drop us a line, and you won't want to miss it. It's a great time to network, and that is our spiel. So scoutiq.co/summit. Well, I'm excited about today's guest. Matthew was trying to fill a last second slot, so thank you to this individual for doing that. But Matthew threw out on our Slack channel this morning, said, "Hey, we've got this guy, and his name is Rags." And I said,
"It was yesterday. It was yesterday."
Yeah. We got some time change issues, but was pretty excited when I heard that name, and we're gonna introduce him to you. So if you've not heard of Rags, you're about to, and let's bring him into the show.
Hey guys.
Right. What is happening? For those listening to the podcast, Rags does not look like your typical bookseller. He's got a massive goatee, heavily tatted. He's got looks like a police shirt on. So we're about to meet a very interesting character. So Rags, welcome to the show. We're glad you're here. Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from the Rags Cave, which my wife hates, in Arkansas. It's full of old crappy furniture, drones, vinyl, turntables, all the kind of stuff that, guys like me love.
And
no Harley. I couldn't get my Harley in here, but.
Well, that's what the garage is for. And if you don't have a section of the house that's all to yourself, then you're not really living. So
I've been trying to explain that for nearly 45 years.
Well, I don't think that women will listen to more men piling on, but if you need some vouchers, Matthew and I are happy to word for you.
Excellent.
Cool. Well, Rags, we're excited to have you. Your actual name is I don't know if you want to share your real name.
Yeah,
I don't know
my name is Mike Ragsdale, hence Rags. My dad was called Rags. My brother's called Rags. Everybody with my last name probably is called Rags. So in my biker mission, we use road names for security reasons. So obviously I already had one. And just in the corporate world, people don't know who Mike Ragsdale is, but some people that you'd all probably recognize knows who Rags is. So I just it stuck.
Yep. Well, anytime someone has a nickname that sticks, they tend to be pretty cool people. So we're looking forward to hearing your story here.
I appreciate that.
What kind of Harley do you ride?
I ride a Road Glide.
Nice.
Well, I mean, I've had some smaller bikes, but my wife likes comfort, and we like to do a little bit of cross-country riding. So in our missions, we go out of state, sometimes for court. It's a whole lot easier on a bigger bike.
I've never ridden a Road Glide, but I've sat on one before, and those things are big. They've got some weight to them.
Yeah, I'm not that big a guy, so people say, "How do you do?" Yeah, it's what I like, man.
Sweet. Well, let's jump in from the beginning. Well, before we do that, let's just share a little bit about, like we mentioned, a little bit of some of your hobbies. What does a typical week in the life of Rags look like today? This is September of 2022. Let's just get a rough feel for what you're doing around Arkansas right now, and then we'll kind of back up and kind of get that origin story.
Cool. Well, the book business is predominantly managed. I mean, I'm a partner. The day-to-day management, I don't do so much of that anymore, but getting ready to jump back in and take it to a little bit of a different place. But my typical week, I work on. We've got a training program that we're working on. A couple of partners and I. We've taken neuroscience and therapy, and with our child mission that we've done for the last 12 years to help people to find motivation and be more productive. So I'm working on that pretty much through the week. Every weekend we're writing on child missions. This weekend we have one on Saturday, and we have 3 cases on Sunday. So that keeps my weekends very busy. I founded that this chapter 12 years ago. And, we're just very, very busy. We have several chapters now, around the state and growing, but that keeps me busy.
That's wonderful. You mentioned motivation. What's something unexpected you've discovered about motivation as you've kind of gone down that rabbit hole?
Well, as a person of faith, what I found about motivation is that God is the original neuroscientist. One of the guys we ride with is we call our system the motivation equation. And one of the guys we ride with has been a neuropsychologist for 35 years and published 84 times. That, this guy has a world of knowledge. So we understood, what happens in the brain chemistry for motivation, and working with abused kids who are frozen and paralyzed in fear. How do we get them out of that situation and onto a place that, they can get therapy and do the things they need to do? We're able to translate that to just everyday productivity. So I'm excited to work on that. It's a passion of mine, because I think that's a big problem with people is they don't know, the world leads them around all day long and they're not necessarily in control. So what we want to do is teach people how to control what you can and influence the rest. And that's pretty much the philosophy. I used it in my corporate life. I was a divisional senior VP in the corporate world for years. And, I had to cover my tattoos with suits. So, but now I don't have to do that. I can do the book business. I can do anything I want, be who I want to be who I really am. So, but that's one of my passions, giving back, helping kids. I didn't understand that for a long time. I didn't understand, really who I was. I was blessed with some intellect and a whole lot of ADD. In fact, it's HD. It's 4K. And I'm, so I've done a lot of things, from mountain climbing, rescue teams, law enforcement, I was a cop, pilot, just about anything that interested me. I was the last generation in my family to be a farmer, first generation to go to college. Very, just a very eclectic background, which brought me to understanding people and how to connect with people, because that's really, at the end of the day, what you have to do. If you want to be successful, you have to understand how to sincerely connect with people.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Well, it's obvious you don't have much energy and much drive and motivation. So.
Yeah, I'm an old dude, man, and I go hard. In fact, my body says no, and my brain says go.
Yep. Well, if you're blessed with a lot of energy and you found a way to kind of just harness that and keep going, then man, take care of that body, run with it as long as you can. And, the beautiful thing is, you mentioned you have your own podcast as well, and doing the training. Your work, your energy can live on far after your body's not able to continue. So that's one of the cool things about the era in which we're all fortunate enough to live.
It's an amazing time to be an entrepreneur. We have the tools, the technology, where we couldn't do that. I mean, I come from the corporate world, that it was very, very complicated, very complex. And, from the digital marketing world. And it's unbelievable to me, the things that we can do. In fact, just the book business has been a great education for me along those lines.
That's awesome. Well, before we get into the role of books that, what in terms of what those play with everything else that you got going on, Matthew, you love everything along the lines of like motivation and self-help. I'm guessing you've got a couple questions you want to run by Rags. This is like right up your alley.
Oh, he is. I just want to take a look at what he said they put together. It sounds awesome. Yeah, motivation and just discipline have always been something that have been really big to me, because I realize how terrible I am at it and how terrible I am at actually being able to focus and stick with it. So I don't love that topic because I'm great at self-discipline. I love it because I know how bad I am and I'm trying to get better at it. So it sounds like you put together a program to kind of help people through that productivity and motivation. So I'd love to take a look at that sometime and see what you guys have put together. It sounds like a really, really cool project.
It's exciting to me because I have some of the same issues. Procrastination, ADD. I mean, look that way, go that way. And this methodology that we learned, a lot of it is from how does a therapist get you to live in the moment and bring things out. And I do the mission to help abused kids, and so does my partners, because two of the three of us were those kids. So I grew up with that, and it was a very difficult time. In fact, a lot of guys my age don't want to talk about it, which needs to change.
Yep.
That being horribly bullied, so it created that situation for me that I just was doing whatever life was pulling me around by the nose, and to take control of that. The productivity aspect of that, we developed a methodology we're going to launch next month that really allows you to take about 30 seconds and think about where you are. And it goes through the process that the brain goes through. And it will really give you options. And we talk about with our children, the first thing that happens is what happened to them. They'd had no choices. But now, when we start giving them choices, the brain starts to rewire. So with our methodology, the more you practice it, your brain starts to rewire and you become better and better and better at being more productive. And also for me and many others, we've used the methodology for people who have triggers, PTSD triggers. And if you nip those in the bud with our system, it actually works, because it's worked for me. We've got an inpatient treatment centers, and it's something, it's a gift from God for me, because I really didn't understand how I was going to take control of things on a daily basis. In fact, all day long. And, we were blessed with the gift, and we're going to share it. We're going to share it with the world.
I love it.
That sounds awesome.
When we stick around after the show notes, I've got a couple follow-up questions for you. So remind me as we
Sweet.
Cool. All right. So you are an energetic guy, obviously with a pretty big heart. How the heck do books play a role in the thing that you're doing? So explain a little bit of the role that you're doing with books right now, and then we're going to rewind the script, go back to the beginning, and kind of share that starter story for those maybe starting out themselves.
I'm a partner in a book warehouse. It's about 25,000 square feet, and we do the normal things that most bulk people do. We sell on Amazon. We sell multiple channels. We do that. We have to get creative like everybody does. When Amazon plays the games that they play, we got to get creative. And that's what I do best. I'm not, in the weeds day-to-day guy of, you guys taught me the technology. You guys taught me how to, in fact, a lot of people that you in this network, the book community, taught me. But what I understood was the retail aspect of it, the difference in marketing and merchandising, and was able to leverage that. So our marketing or our retail operation could cover fixed costs. Trying to figure out how to cover your fixed cost at the same time you understand your variables. I mean, all that. That's Caleb, that extremely well. But that's where we are today. Where we started is a whole different place. How I started is a whole different place, but that's where we are today. Constantly, evolving, looking for new ways to create revenue streams as everybody does. And that being a strategy guy, I love that aspect of it. But I also like the therapeutic aspect of using my Scout IQ, scanner and going out and treasure hunting. I mean, that to me is the fun part.
Well, I actually, it's funny you mentioned that. Part of just like therapy for me, going out and cutting the grass or mowing the lawn, depending on where you are in the country. I've actually outsourced that. It's something that I travel so much. I didn't even want to buy a mower when I got my house here in Indiana.
I outsourced that too.
and I fight against it, not because like it's worth the money, right? I don't want to be out there doing it. And I'm gone. I'm going to be in India for 2 weeks here, going to a wedding of one of my developers. I can't cut the grass. I don't want to call in favors from neighbors, but I'm giving up that therapy. And fortunately, books is kind of the same thing. We work in a technological age. I work on my computer day in and day out, working on software. And at the end of the day, there's often nothing to show for what you did. You answered emails, you played defense, maybe you had a couple Zoom calls, but at the end of the day, you close your laptop and that's it. And you go, wait a second, my whole life existed right in front of me. And that was that. And so books, sometimes when I just need to get my brain out of its fog, I'll just go to the warehouse and scan books. And it could be any time of day. Is that the best use of my time? Absolutely not. But it is a chance for me to get in there, play with our software, check out the warehouse. And there's something therapeutic about stacking up a pile of books and mowing them. So I totally relate to everything.
It's crazy. I live next door to a psychiatrist, and he told me one day, he said, if everybody rode motorcycles, I wouldn't have a job, because of just the focus, and you're able to dump your brain, and you're so focused on the road ahead, especially riding the mountains. There's no room for anything else. But I found the same thing with hunting books. I mean, you get into a Goodwill store or whatever you are, and you're just, man, I mean, I found it was the same kind of escape. It's therapy for me. And so even with everything else going on, that treasure hunt, vinyl, all those things. I mean, I love vinyl. I mean, I got stacks and stacks of it. And it's the thing that me and my two boys, share, that we love to do. It's awesome. But that's kind of what got me when I had to retire from the corporate world with a medical situation. It kind of took me out of the world for about 3 years. And I thought, this was going to be life. And I started to wake up and improve and get a little bit better. I found, the books were, it's about 5-6 years ago, just started playing around with that. And it turned out to be a hobby. And I go back, and as a divisional VP, my office was in Seattle and my office was in Chicago. I was on airplanes all the time. And I think now, man, how cool would that have been if I could sit all those, that 10 hours, that I sat on a plane that week to go from Arkansas to Atlanta and fly over my house to get up to Seattle, several times a month. If I could have been in the book business at that time, that would have been a whole lot of fun. But, I found it later on. I met wonderful people. I mean, the people in the community are awesome. And, Caleb, you and I have talked a few times. Romer, I love Romer. Romer taught me a lot. Chris Williams, Cash Monkey guys have helped me a lot. Just wonderful, wonderful people.
Yeah, we joked about that coming in. There are a couple of characters in
there's some sharks.
But sharks is a nice way to put it.
Well, I was a pretty wild cop, so I kind of shut those off pretty quick.
Yeah, we've seen a lot in the industry. We get some crazy people in our Facebook groups even, and then just we've heard of cops getting called on booksellers that can't agree.
I didn't have that issue, but I followed you guys on your Facebook page for years, and those stories about at the sales, library sales, it's kind of like, all right, there should be video of that, because it would be it could be a reality series.
Well, we've joked. I think Netflix would love to do a show about it. I mean, they've done Storage Wars, and if we got into book flipping tactics or strategy,
oh man,
I think it'd be really cool. Matthew and I hope we'll end up as some of the heroes, or at least some of the good guys when it's portrayed. But maybe we'll be the villains. Only history will tell. Matthew, the thought occurred to me as Rags was talking. The idea of books being therapy. We always talk about the thrill of the hunt. But if we start marketing, looking for books as therapy, I think we could actually raise our average monthly price. Might be able to get doctor's notes where, hey, instead of getting all these like 10 over-the-counter prescriptions or like, whatever that the doctors are prescribing, it's like, hey, what'd you get for your ADD? Oh, my doctor offered Scout IQ.
Well, there's equine therapy. The horse isn't a therapist, but the horse knows what to do. So might as well just be, check that box. It could be Scout IQ, equine therapy.
Hey, for the cost of your copay, that you can have Scout IQ, and then we can start billing insurance. This might be our inflection point as a company.
No, I like it. For the 3 days those ads stay up before Facebook bans them, it'll be great.
Well, Rags, when we either end up in prison for false advertising or we become millionaires, we'll keep you in mind either.
Let's do it.
Cool. All right. So, Mike, you had how'd you get into your first book? So you mentioned the corporate world. You were jet setting, doing all of that. How did you even get from that world, from the biker world, from everything that you're involved in? How'd you get to selling your first book?
I just kind of started looking around for something to do, and I found textbook arbitrage, and sounded interesting. So I studied. I learned a little bit about. I didn't know anything about Amazon. I mean, I just do a seller account, and the whole thing. Not a deep technology guy, so there was a bit of a learning curve for me. But I was going through. I'd had multiple surgeries, going through the medical issues, and I just at my kitchen table started playing around with that, buying and selling books, on the arbitrage method just on Amazon. And I found it to be extremely entertaining and interesting. And this ADD brain of mine could actually focus on that and enjoy the hell out of it. So then I think the next thing I did was you guys. I said, okay, how do I go out and find these textbooks? And so I did. And when I did that was the hook. When I started doing that was just so much fun. I got my wife involved and she was doing it. And then we decided to let's just invest some money and let's do it full time. So we started at the kitchen table and moved to the garage, and then arbitrage, and then more started really going out and finding books at sales and following you guys' roadmap, and then listening to Romer, and what, I think I can do this, and it became a lot of fun. So a hobby turned into a full-time job. And moved it to the garage. I really advanced to the garage. So now I'm down at the garage because, kitchen table isn't going to support everything. And that's when I got with some of the other guys on the bulk side. I wanted to move there. So I got with Chris Williams and Cash Monkey, and we started working with that. And then I said, I can't do this. So we need to move to a warehouse. So I moved to an 1,800 square foot warehouse, brought in a partner and just, doing that, but we couldn't scale that. So I'm all about, being able to duplicate something and scale it. If you can't duplicate it, you can't scale it. So, that's the process. That's my corporate thinking. So I needed to be able to do something that was duplicatable. And again, finding a method, a system that would allow me to, the way my brain thinks is, fixed ops, fixed costs, variable costs, labor, all metrics. I'm a very metric driven guy. And, what's the strategy? How do I monetize the duds? How do I do that differently? So that's really where all of that came about. I drifted away from the day-to-day, bottom line dealing with books, but I have slung, books to where my arthritis has, my wife's hands are basically destroyed from it. We did that full time, day in and day out, in a big way. And we wanted to scale that up. So that's, we moved to a larger warehouse, but the retail aspect worked very well at the small one. And the interesting part of that is we had people driving by, 50 bookstores at least, coming from as long, 8 hours away, and renting a hotel room to come to our little retail, warehouse, the way we set it up. And being a person, I study people. What do they want? How do they react? What's the psychology behind their purchases? I realized that, there's magic here. When people are book lovers, and I have to confess, I wasn't a book lover. I reference books, that kind of stuff. My wife, family members are avid. I mean, they're just bibliophiles, right? And I love them, so I can understand, the drive. But that's what really drove the whole model.
Love
is
it.
people.
There's so much to pick apart. Let's go back to the very beginning. So you kept your corporate job. You discovered online arbitrage. You mentioned textbooks, so I'm guessing.
No, I was out of the corporate job. I was out of the corporate job for 3 years, recovering from an issue that I had that actually I had to retire. And my retirement, last time I was in Seattle at my retirement party, my company rented Harleys for us to ride around the city. That's the last time I was involved or wore a suit at in that world. And then I had to find something to do about 3 years into that. And then as I started to cognitively get a little bit better, I found books, and I didn't experiment with anything else. It just straight to books.
Well, I would argue that maybe books found you.
Maybe.
So you got started with some arbitrage. Was that Zen arbitrage or eFlip or something else?
I started with Zen arbitrage.
Okay.
And then I actually started using your program. I went from there to your program, and I was just, I don't know. It was fun, but it wasn't enough. I really wanted I wanted hands-on. I wanted to see them, feel them. I wanted to get I want more understanding of the industry, and I couldn't do that with just doing arbitrage.
Yeah, so arbitrage was kind of just scratching the surface, saying, "Hey, there's something here. Does this actually work?" Do you remember, like, how many books were you ordering a week? How much in sales did you get up to? Like, how much scale did you put into the arbitrage side, other than just testing the waters?
Oh man, I had, when I first started, I went pretty much all in. I would buy, and this is crazy. I would look at the books. I would look at the inventory, and I knew if I bought a certain number of textbooks, I could change the price. So I would actually buy them and pretty much change the market for a short period of time. And so that's how my brain thinks. And I'm looking at those. I'm looking at inventory levels. I'm looking at what's available. I'm looking at editions. I mean, I learned that was the fun aspect for me, but it required quite a bit of capital to do that. And, as I was, when we moved into the warehouse, it was usually, it wasn't a lot. I mean, about $50,000 that I had invested in, making that profit. I made a lot of mistakes. And trying to how I reprice and when, and, I got to the point where I could not manually do that. So I needed to do some other things, but that was my progression. If you don't make the mistakes, you're really not going to understand things. You just don't want to make the fatal ones.
Right. We always talk about it's best to learn from others' mistakes, but it's most impactful to learn from your own. There's no substitute for it. You can tell the story, but until you put your own money in play, until you make those mistakes and go, okay, I learned, you don't really fully grasp that lesson. So
yeah, and I used to tell my team, I'm going to give you a big ledge. I'm just not going to let you fall off of it. And so I expected people to treat me the same way. Give me a big ledge, let me make some mistakes, just don't let me fall off of it.
Love it. All right. So you were pouring gas on that flame, testing the waters, trying to prove that Amazon worked. Obviously, you had some success, you made some mistakes, etc. At what point did you kind of start shifting your attention and say, all right, this is cool, books are great, but there's got to be a different way? Do you remember a certain day where you
I do.
Said,
it's crazy. Somebody introduced me to this Facebook page that was private bulk books. Right. And exactly what I'm talking about. It was, you guys hadn't been doing it very long. And so I just said, and you approved me to be a member on that page. And I started following people and watching it. And because I liked it, I enjoyed the business. I knew that I wanted to do something that I could, again, it was duplicatable and scalable. And that drove me. And I just, there was no way for me to do what I wanted to do. There's just no way for me to by myself to go out and find enough books. I had other things I wanted to do. I did not want to spend 8 hours a day, hunting books all the time.
Yeah.
I want to do it when I want to enjoy it.
Yeah, and that's a very big distinction. I think it's something that people have to come to terms with is if you want to just go and scout for books all day, you can build a very good business doing it. I know a lot of people that are selling 200, 300, 400 grand.
Absolutely.
And it's doable, but I would argue that you own your job rather than owning a business at that point. Because if you walk away, if you take a vacation, then that business kind of stalls out. It grinds out, it hits the brakes, right? Whatever analogy you want to use. Versus if you build a business and put people in it and start caring about the environment, the operating procedures, the practices along the way, then you actually have a business. So you kind of saw that. So for those you mentioned the group, it's not really that hidden. I think it's just called bulk book selling tactics or strategy.
I think it used to be at the very beginning, maybe.
Yeah, we kind of kept it quiet. We were developing some of the Palette IQ software early on and just trying to find a couple customers in the bulk space. So we built that. It ended up just kind of being a private community for the bulk book baby bulk sellers that ramp up and get a storage unit. And then we have sellers like yourself that have just ramped up like crazy. It's funny hearing that you started at 1,800 square feet. Now you're more than 10x that, 25,000 square feet. So bulk books can scale quickly, of course. So you mentioned bringing on a partner as well. Is this someone that you knew that already did books, or was it?
No, I didn't. I mean, partnerships are difficult. I think they're harder than marriages, but I mean, they are. I did, and I mean, it's just, if I had it to do all over again, I would probably do it on my own. But it's just, you can't change history. But I want more control. I want more creative control, and that's why I said I'm going to re-engage and do some other things. We were able to be very creative with the books, and then we got automation. So the automation that we use helped us a lot in genre, because the retail side became so important. I mean, the retail side during the Amazon difficult times, retail side was always gold. I mean, and we're able to build that with spending virtually no money on advertising or any marketing or even additional employees. There's a way to do that is minimal expense and maximum return.
Sure. So you mentioned the business partner, and Matthew and I talk about this a lot. One of my favorite phrases is, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. Our team's been incredibly fortunate. We do butt heads from time to time. There's definitely some personalities, although not enough of personality to have a good podcast, apparently.
My partners in our methodology are the motivation equation, which is Veracity Business Solutions. We do other consulting. We do consulting in outside of the book industry. I mean, we consult leadership, sales teams, which is my background. So we do that. But those partners are phenomenal. I mean, we all, you're right. Go alone, you go fast. Think of every major business you can think of, giants. All the social, they all started with partnerships. My own company started in the garage with partnerships that turned out to be $1 billion company. So,
well, and that's something that, again, there's some days I wake up and go, man, I wish I was doing this myself. Not the software. I can't code. I can't do any of that. So I do rely on either contractors or partners to do it. But at the end of the day, it is really important to have someone that you can bounce ideas off. And even if you do disagree, I think that disagreement those are the critical issues in the company. I determine actually helps push you forward.
Totally agree.
Well, while you were talking, I looked it up. Is mindfulambition.net, is that your site?
No, we haven't launched it yet. So you'll see. We'll launch it next month, and I'll give you guys a heads up on it. But what we've done is we built modules. Our modules will go out, and we're launching the training modules at the same time. Our podcast. Our podcast is going to be basically focused. In fact, love to have you guys a guest on our podcast to talk about your motivations.
Let's do it.
It'll be fun.
Cool.
I've already put the bite on Romer, so he was in a few months ago when he was here visiting.
Well, if he's in, then we're in. So
that could be a scary gig, man.
Now that'll be exciting to see how that takes off for you. What you guys best there. So when did you make the transition over into bulk books? Do you know roughly what year?
Yeah, it was at the end of 2019. So we did that, towards the end of 2019. Got in a warehouse in December of 2019.
So right before COVID, then, right?
It was right before. That's crazy, man. Right before COVID. In fact, yes. What a great education, man. I mean, you're rock and roll. You build your systems, you build things around a business model, and then something completely outside of your control. Now, here in Arkansas, we didn't shut down like they did a lot of other places, but there was a few weeks where we couldn't have anybody in the retail side, and we would do like everybody else did. We would rerun the same books that we had. The FBA books changed. We weren't doing a ton of fulfilled by merchant at that time, but we expanded that. We realized the value of that, and but yeah, it was what a challenge, man.
I believe it.
And again, I'm going to botch this quote, but there's something like everybody has a plan. I think Mike Tyson said it, until you get punched in the face. And, that's exactly what happened. You come up with all these game plans and contingencies and strategies, and then COVID shows up. You go, well, we didn't really see that coming. Business plan made sense, assuming nothing else changed. And then here we are. So those that have stuck around over the last couple of years, it's been tough. We've definitely had to pivot.
Yep.
That's a fancy business word for just stuff up as we go. But the people that have stuck around are a lot stronger for it. I know every time Amazon changes something, every time the world throws something at us, people quit. And that's just a natural equation. Of course, more people are going to come in and take their spot. But for those of us that made it through, kind of feels like a brotherhood and a bit of a fraternity, if you want to call it that, just because we all had the battle wounds and we had to make it work.
Well, and for us, our thought process that when we went in of giving back and serving. So we donated literally tons of books, and we could do it at that time. Literally tons of books to prisons. We donated lots and lots and lots of Gaylords to for foster kids and for VA, satellite offices, where just anywhere that we could help. And by doing that, we also, we found volunteers. We had we had a full-time volunteer, Scott Harriman, who retired from the prison system and came in, and just that heart and the heart to give back. If you will give back, if you will give, you will get back. It's not just giving, but it also, it turns in, it helps you with your profit, margin. It helps you with your profitable side of your business, because you have more and volunteers, you have more people sharing what you're doing. That marketing aspect was huge for us, because it was a happy place. They came in even during COVID with masks on when they could. They came in and it was an escape, and we made it that way. That was happy place. Whether you worked there or you were a customer, it was safe zone. It was a place to come and just be good and happy.
I love that. Where else do we take this conversation? So let's get into a little bit of tactics. I know you said you're more of a strategy guy. Can you just give us a little, without getting into too many details that you don't want to, roughly what does the business look like? What's your mix between FBA and merchant fulfillment? And then, are you trying to get more of your business back into the retail side, away from Amazon? Like, roughly, what's your strategies without giving away too much of your secret?
The retail side is the stability aspect. So as textbook season comes and goes, we kind of got away from a little bit of that because of the challenges, obviously. But donations. I mean, book donations are huge. People bring books to us like crazy. We will have people buy books and come back and donate them back. But the mix between FBA, we were very heavy on FBA, and then when Amazon, when we're geared up to send lots and lots of pallets to Amazon. And when we had the limitations, we've got an expensive, warehouse that it doesn't fit that model anymore. So we needed to pivot and transition more to FBM, more to, we also always eBay and Walmart and a bunch of different channels that we even were doing decorative stuff on Etsy. Anywhere we could sell books, we would sell. And the biggest issue was getting rid of the books that we could not sell through Amazon, eBay, the duds. That's really the secret. And how you set that up, who you market to, understand who is going to come to the middle of nowhere in a warehouse that doesn't look like anything, but just a gravel parking lot, and then have people drive for hours to come in there and hang out and want to come back and start sharing and start advertising for you. That's really the secret sauce. We took the Walmart approach to where do we place genres? How do we place them? Where do they go? And that's important as well. Where do the children's books go relative to other books? We made conscious decisions. We weren't going to be politically correct. We were not going to sell porn or anything like that. But pretty much it was free zone, free space, no judgment zone. Come and be yourself. Enjoy the process. Enjoy the hunt, because we created a hunting kind of a process.
Is your retail shop opened every day, or is it kind of limited hours?
It's open every day, half a day on Sunday. Staffing that hasn't been a challenge. We have part-time people on Saturday and part-time people on Sunday. The operations of the warehouse runs Monday through Friday, for the most part.
And then have you tinkered around with pricing in terms of the actual book sale itself, or have you just then and stayed with it?
Yeah, I mean, our pricing model is unique. I don't want to get too deep into that, but that's important depending on your market. But one thing I will say is you don't need to be in a high traffic area. You don't need to be in a strip mall. You don't need to. In fact, I would love to have a Books A Million and a Hastings, on each side. That would be perfect. I'd love that. Kind of like an auto mall. It works. But the cost per square foot of that kind of a property is, you don't need that. People will find you if you are giving them what they want, and there's a passion behind book lovers like nothing else I've ever seen. And being that as a strategist, talking about how you give people what they want. If you rise above the noise and you're doing something they cannot get down the street and they love it so much, they're going to travel, they're going to find you. And we just figured out the formula to get them in. They did TV shows with us. I mean, they came and did, TV interviews. I mean, they're driving past major giant, multi-million-dollar bookstores to come and look at a bunch of used books because it was so unique, and it still is.
That's fantastic. Well, McKay's, for those in the Tennessee area, McKay's is a very popular store.
Familiar with it.
A local following, and people go. I mean, I've been down there from Indiana. When I was there, I'm like, I have to stop by McKay's. There's just that cult-like following. And in terms of what you're doing, I think you're spot on. You're trying to create experience because Amazon's created a commodity. If you want a particular book, you can, with a click or two, go on, hone right in on it, buy the book, get it shipped to your front door, and it's super easy, convenient. You can be lazy, and that book just shows up. What we're missing, I think there's two opportunities to really push us back toward retail. One is just why we all love books. It's that thrill of the hunt, not knowing what you're going to find. It's walking into a bookstore, feeling just that memory of childhood, right? There's something about that. But also going in there and going, you know what? I'm kind of interested in history or business or whatever it might be, and not going, I want to find this particular book. And you walk in and you don't know what you're going to find. You walk out with 3 or 4 books, or 30 or 40, depending on your level of discipline. And that's just the fun part of going, I didn't expect to even be interested in a book about this, but that one caught my attention. And so I purchased it, and that is what we can offer. That's the experience.
Exactly. I knew there was magic there when I would see people come in and just kind of look at this. It's an old, used to be an automotive or equipment shop. It's just, man, it's nothing. And get them to walk around the corner and look at the books and tears, and as a, psychological marketing guy, I thought, man, there's magic here. How do we leverage that? Because they're getting something that they enjoy. I enjoyed that aspect of it. Not being a book lover, I learned to love book lovers because I just see the passion. And then I got into the with the children and the people that we work with, and I had many conversations with them, in the book warehouse about how they escape their environment. And we tell people all the time in our mission, because we will empower them, we will rescue them, we will do 24/7 protective details, we will put them in safe houses, we will go to their trials where they have to testify against their accuser. Scariest stuff in the world. Their environment doesn't change, but we can change how they feel about their environment. That's why I'm so passionate about the book community, especially bulk book people, getting those books into the right places, the charity, getting those books where they can be, and it'll pay you back many times over if you do that.
I think the second piece is just more economical. Is just books are getting more expensive because shipping fees go up. So, a couple years ago, books were $4 a penny plus $3.99 shipping. Now they're approaching $5.50, $6. And as fees continue to go up, we're going to see books. So being able to go somewhere and pick them up locally for sub $6 ends up being a win for those that are thrifty as well. That's how Amazon got started, was being very budget oriented, and now they still want to be cheap, but convenience is kind of their big play. One question just on the you mentioned trying to get like the psychology of consumers. There's obviously a lot of material written on that, and that's a subject matter that continues to change. When you had your idea for the retail piece of your business, did you saw the customers crying or having those aha moments? Obviously, that's proof that it's working. In your early stages before you got to that, or maybe you just jumped right into it, how did you sort of quantify or interview customers? What did you do to take your initial gut feel and actually kind of move that over time to where customers wanted to see it?
You observe keenly, really closely, and watch people and talk to them about, what's going on, what are they thinking? And if you do that and you constantly think about incremental improvements, but the very beginning, we just had all of these and had these all of these duds and trying to get recycle, and they're stacking up, and what do you throw them away? It just, and people are aghast, right? You're throwing books away. Well, what do you do if you don't have any other way to move them? Because an 1,800 square foot warehouse is going to stack up pretty quick, and there's no other space, so you're running out of room. And we had them stacked up to the ceiling. So a friend of mine that that rides motorcycles and is is a president of a club, and he's also full-time soldier, and he's about 6'6", and he weighs about 280 pounds, and he's a badass dude like I've never seen before. And he comes, he said, "Rags, I'm gonna meet me. I've got Sunday off. I'd like to come and look through some books that I had that I wanted to show him I said, man, you've been looking for these kind of books. I have some." So he showed up at the warehouse, and he walks in. He's an intimidating guy, right? And he starts looking through these boxes, and he starts picking out books. And he said, "Oh, this is Van Gogh." And then he starts getting into poetry. And so I had judged him completely wrong, like we typically do. We judge people on the face. Mm-hmm. And he taught me, book lovers come in all shapes and sizes and all walks of life. And I learned that. So he taught me that lesson. So I said, how do I address that market? Because it's not being addressed. And that's what we did. We allowed him to come in and have that joy of finding these books. and not having to go through a certain particular type of pricing model, which we have a pricing model that works extremely well for that. And so that was the catalyst for me to get to really pay attention, because it wasn't a demographic I'd ever really thought of. I mean, it's not a demographic that most anybody ever thinks of, unless you're Hastings or Books a Million and those guys. But it did me. So I started to study, and we did more of that. And then I found that people are traveling. They're traveling. You know, they're driving by bookstores, driving 2 or 3 hours. We had a couple of sisters, well, 3, drove from New Orleans to Mississippi to pick up a sister. 3 of them came in, got a hotel room. They stayed all day, came back the next day. It was a sister's day out. And those kind of things I started paying attention to. Why are these people driving past all of these bookstores to come to a old, used to be greasy, probably still is, warehouse floor, you know, with a bunch of books? And that was my education. Then we started to perfect it incrementally. Where do we place them? How do we place them? How do we price them? You know, what's moving, what's not? Started bundling sets. How you do that? There's ways to do that, ways not to do that. But the retail side is extremely different from the online world. I mean, totally different. Yep. Merchandising and marketing of the retail side is a unique beast.
Yeah, I love everything about it. And we talk about our concept of startup, scale up, step back. That's kind of how I view business, is just get started. For you, that was online arbitrage, just getting started with textbooks. Was it where you ultimately ended up? No, but that's how you got your foot in the door. Then it was, how do we scale this thing? What's the word you said?
Duplicatable. I have to be able to duplicate every aspect of it, because I think in terms, if I can duplicate it 10 times, I can duplicate it 100 times.
Yep.
And for me, that's the gate. And if I can get through that gate, if I can beat that barrier, then I know that it's scalable. Yep. And once you have something scalable, now you can start applying, you know, normal business principles to it. But people need to think a little bit more like that. You need to perfect what you're doing, and then, you know, move in. So we moved in from there into automation, and which with every step, each step needed to support the other revenue streams. If
Yep.
you can't find the synergy between one revenue stream and the other revenue stream, then rethink it.
Yeah, you got to spot those patterns. So startup, you did. Scale up, you know, you've done. I'm sure you'll continue to do it. And then the last concept that people sometimes never get to is the concept of stepping back. And that's where you say, hey, business is great, but I'm not here to just run a book business. That's not why I'm on this planet. And so I love your enthusiasm and being able to see your heart and see how you've said, hey, I've got this book thing. I want to be at the 30,000 foot view, but I have all these other things that I'm interested in, between the nonprofit work, between the behavioral psychology work, and you're found a way to then step back from the book game and say, hey, I'm still going to run this. I'm still going to work with my partners, but there's things more important to that. And as long as the business is operating well, if it's a well-oiled machine, that allows you to do that. I read a quote today. James Clear, he wrote
Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits. Thank you. So very, very, very good book. And he is he's a really good writer. I'm not a very clear speaker today. For some reason, my brain isn't firing on all cylinders. Maybe it's the caffeine. But check out, I think it's just jamesclear.com. You can sign up for his newsletter. He sends out, he calls them 3-2-1 every week. But I read something in his newsletter today, and it reminded me of you, Rag. So I'm just going to read the quote. What it is, and it just reminds me of just watching how you approached the book business and everything else you're doing. So I don't know who he's quoting, but he says, the first step, perhaps the most enormous step, is to find what you are genuinely interested in. If you are genuinely interested, you will discover endless opportunities for improvement, which is exactly what you've been talking about. If you're disinterested, even obvious improvements will feel like a chore. And if you can maintain your genuine interest and curiosity as the years accumulate, you'll become very hard to compete with, because you will have skill to go with your passion. If you're interested, you are dangerous. And I love that quote, and I think it reminds me a lot of exactly what you're describing here.
Amen. When you God speaks to me at times and does through other people. And we had a prison librarian came in one day, and she had $100 bill. And she came in and she said, I'm going to get enough books for the prison. It's my own dollars because there's no budget. But I want to buy some Bibles. I want to buy some things I can get into the prison. And I said, put your $100 away. Let me take you in the back. So I took her in the back and I said, there's about 2 tons of books right here that I'm going to give you. And she cried. And she said, I prayed on the way here that you could, that I was going to get something for my $100. And so from doing that, we started having lots of business, state business, municipalities come in and school districts doing business with it because that word starts to spread. And then they started paying us some things. We still donated tons of books to people, but I'm a firm believer that if your heart's in the right place, you'll be taken care of.
I love that. Well, we are going to shift gears here. We want to shift to the last segment of our show where we get into the geek out moment. For those that are watching, thanks for sticking through it. If you do have questions for Rags or Matthew or myself, but primarily Rags, he's a great resource. You can tap into that while we have him live. Go ahead and drop those comments on Facebook or YouTube. We will answer just a couple, and we will wind this down over the next 10 to 15 minutes or so. So we have the section called Geek Out Moment. It doesn't have to be business related. It doesn't have to be bourbon related. It can be anything. I'll jump in real quick. I've just been geeking out lately just over building fires. So we've got fall settling in Indiana. We've had some colder weather. Matthew, I know you built some fires and go camping with the family. Hey, most times you build like a pyramid and go up, right? So you have like kindling on the bottom, a couple like teepee, like bigger sticks on top, bigger sticks, logs, etc. Have you ever done the reverse of that?
Where the kindling's on top and it gets bigger as it goes down versus up?
Yep.
I don't know if I've purposely done different than that. No, normally I don't. Normally I do something kind of in between that. But why? What happens if you do it the opposite direction?
Really fascinating. So you end up with a really tremendous coal bed that just works its way down the fire. And by the time you get to the bigger logs on bottom, you've just got something massive that, you can just throw logs on that sucker all night and it's not going anywhere. So I've just been experimenting, getting some bonfires going. And I love this time of year. Unfortunately, in Indiana, fall sometimes lasts 2 months, sometimes it lasts 2 weeks. But we're starting to enter into that beautiful season where you can chuck a sweatshirt on in the evening and go out with some friends and enjoy a nice beverage and enjoy the evening. So I've been playing around with fire. Hopefully I don't get burned.
I'll have to pick your brain on that in the future. I bought an offset smoker. It's not here yet. It will be soon, but I got to figure out how to make fires and coal beds last a long time. So it'll be fun to talk about building fires and how to keep that going. It'll be something I'll be doing a lot in the near future.
What have you been geeking out over, Matthew?
So I don't remember if I shared this last week or not. This isn't something major I've been geeking out over, but I've been looking at it the last few days because my father-in-law got me interested in it. So we got a camper. We lived in a camper for a while. We lived in a fifth wheel a couple of years ago. For about nine or 10 months, we lived in a fifth wheel. We sold that because it was way too big when we got our house. But recently we wanted to take the kids camping, and we had an opportunity to go camping recently. And so we got a really small, very old pop-up camper, something similar to what I grew up with camping in, just to take the kids out. And we're actually going to be able to rent that out and make some money with it on the side since it was so cheap to buy. But when we got that camper, my father-in-law, he reached out. He's like, hey, do you know how to weld? And for those of you that don't know my past, I worked for a welding supply company when I first graduated college. I'm not a great welder. I have welded a few times. I'm familiar with the process. But I was like, no, I'm not great at welding, but I understand the basic concepts. He's like, oh, I saw your camper. And he's like, I decided I want to build my own camper. I'm going to build the frame, build everything, and build a small teardrop camper for me to go out and camp with. And so he asked me if we wanted to go on a welder together. Long story short, he found someone to weld his trailer for him, and he's still going to build out the trailer. But I started looking into all these cool teardrop and small camper builds people have done. And it's just amazing the ingenuity people have to build these amazing off-road campers that they build out of their garage. You have so much pride in it because you built it, and you know it's way sturdier than the stuff you probably buy for 3 times the cost out an RV dealership. But it's just really, really cool to see all these different trailers people have made to be able to take their family out camping or go have these experiences and something they've used their hands to build. And I don't think I'll build one in the near future, but it is something I think would be really fun to do someday, is actually build something like that and be able to take it out and make memories in it down the road. So maybe I'll just modify the pop-up we got in the near future. But that's something I've been looking into recently. It's been a really cool thing to see all the unique ways people have done that.
Love seeing creativity. Rags, do you have anything you've been geeking out over? I'm sure you do, but let's.
Yeah, dude, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, I golf. I love golf.
Yes.
Haven't been able to play a lot, but I did. Somebody turned me on to virtual reality golf.
Oh my goodness.
So when I escape, I just go and I actually, it's like I can actually do this. It's fun. It's hard, but that's what I've been geeking. It's just a way for me to get away, get out of my office, go to a little place, and in another place in the house, and hit some golf balls and play some golf. I'm trying to get my partners, Andy Mariani and Keith Fleming, to join me. They both have those sets, but they don't. I haven't quite moved them over the top. And when I played golf, he said I was a farmer and a cop. I used to chew a lot of tobacco. I stopped doing that. Bad habit.
Yeah.
But I've probably spit on the best golf courses in the country. I can't do that in the house. So that's one simple thing. I can drink bourbon and play golf in the house. So
there's a very precipitous decline relative to how much bourbon you drink and how good the golf game gets.
I have been there, done that.
A little bit, the golf game gets really good. You start taking more risk, a little bit too much, and the game goes quickly.
And the sad part is you think it was really a good game until you realize it wasn't so good. Yeah.
Well, it depends. Just like business is what are your objectives? And if your intentions are to go out and shoot a low number, maybe bourbon should stay on the shelf. And if your intentions are to go have a good time with your friends, maybe there's a place for it.
Yeah. So, I was never that good. So it's kind of, I've got a buffer zone.
Well,
So are you talking about like Oculus, like VR type golf?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. It's
That's
fun.
pretty cool. I had a friend recently. I bought one of those, and he's been super into the boxing. He's like, it's a great workout. You're sweating by the end. You can actually do boxing. And
well, I hate cardio, but I love cardio since I've been doing that. It works. I mean, it's easy. The ADD in me cannot do cardio, but I can with that because just the visual and everything. So that's why. I do that. I do that, but that's not fun to me. Getting on the driving range virtual when it's 110 degrees outside and humidity is 90. I enjoy it. That's my geek out.
How accurate do you feel it actually is? Do you feel like it's fairly accurate with what your hands are doing, what you're seeing?
Try it and you'll see. If you've got a bit of a fade or a slice, you try it and you'll see it's amazing. Actually, I mean, I was quite surprised that the same flaws I had on the golf course showed up in virtual reality. Yeah.
That's really cool. I'll have to check that out. You definitely should too, Caleb. It sounds like something you'd enjoy.
Well, when it's snow outside, give it a shot.
Yeah. Are you swinging an actual club with it?
No, I've got a device. It's an extension, so it gives you the right weight. Okay. And so you get it's a club, but you just put the controller on the end of it.
Yep.
And you get that feel. But I mean, literally, if you're swinging over the top, you're gonna see that. If you're coming inside and you're turning, you're gonna see all of it in that. So it's actually quite fun.
That's awesome. Well, I will check that out. What system are you playing with?
Golf Plus, Oculus Meta 2 Oculus VR. It was $399 and then just went up $100 a couple of weeks ago. My son has one, and but you can play with partner. You can play around the golf with people. And you can actually see the avatar, watch them swing, watch them. I mean, it's just fun.
So virtual meetings on the golf course.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I did it as well, because I think training, and that's where we're headed.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, that technology has been coming a long way. We've got some TrackMans. I live on a golf course, and we've got TrackMans over in the clubhouse. So
I live across the street. I live on a golf course right across the street from me, and I haven't played on this golf course in like 3 or 4 years. My weekend's taken up with a mission, but I'm going to get back out there.
All right. I'm going to come down and we're going to get you out.
Let's do it, man.
All right. Well, thank you for the geek out moment. That warmed my heart. I got to talk about golf finally. So that's fantastic. Thank you for that. Let's just take a couple questions. I feel like it's a little bit smaller audience than normal live, which is fine. People tend to find these after the fact. If you are listening on the audio only version, if you want to check it out, we do have audio podcasts for those that drive and don't want to see our faces. That's okay. we think you're missing out. But if you do want audio, you can check us out on all the major podcast platforms. But you can also check us out on YouTube. Simply search Books and Bourbon, and you can find all 21 of these beautiful episodes. So if you do have questions, go ahead and drop those. We will field just a couple. And if nobody does, then we will wind this down gracefully. Next week, I will be on a plane headed to India. Actually, our lead developer is getting married. And so I'm going to go attend an authentic Indian wedding. So next week, we'll either record it in advance or I'll be out. Matthew and David will handle it. And then the following week, I'll still be there. And depending on time change, it's about 13, 14 hours off, give or take. I need to double check. So depending on that, I will be doing the podcast from India. So look for that.
That'd be pretty cool.
I am super excited to be there. I've never been to India. We got a local guide. We're going to get to celebrate love and marriage and be there. And I'm really excited to do that. I do not love spicy food. I love Indian food. My mouth, the good Lord did not give me good tolerance for spice. So send your good wishes. Hopefully I survive, or I'll love spice by the time we come back.
When you eat really spicy food, is it just something you don't like, or do you like start sweating and actually like visibly?
I'm sweating. It just hurts my tongue. I don't really have digestion issues. It's not really that. And if someone invented a pill or something I could drink before I ate spicy food and I could do it, I love the taste of it. Just it doesn't love me.
Yeah, I'm not a big spice person either. And if I ever do find a spicy food I like, I'll be like, this is good. And Joy will be like, why are you sweating so much? I'll be like, oh, I have no idea. it gets to me. I understand your pain.
Yeah. Well, cool. I don't see a lot of stuff coming up.
Well, we said, Rags, are you coming to Vegas? I don't know. Are you available the 14th and the 15th of October? It'd be fun to have you in Vegas.
You never know.
So possibly, I'll take that as a possibly.
Rags, if you do want to come out, you're more than welcome to speak. We'll cover your ticket if you do want to come out and just attend or speak or whatever. So
I'll tell you what I do. I miss hanging out with the bookseller community. I'm some of the finest people I've ever met, and they've come through and visited me. And I would love to do that. Yeah, let's talk about that. I would love to do that.
Yeah, we'll catch you after the pod here. With that, I don't think we have much else. Rags, thanks for sharing your story. It's encouraging to see again where you started. I love how the corporate world and just your health and everything else. It actually gave you a firm stop. You didn't have to do that transition, and it's really cool how you found books, or whether books found you. Nobody knows. It's been cool to see your journey and to connect with you over the years, and I look forward to seeing where you end up down the road as well. So thanks for being on here. Do you have? I know your site's not launched. Obviously, you're not saying that brand or anything. Is there a way people can track you down if they do want to get in touch or learn more about what you're doing with some of this behavioral research?
Yeah, I mean, they can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and when we launch this next month, I'll get it in your hands and let you guys try it out. Cool. And see what you think.
Perfect. What are you under on LinkedIn if someone searches for you there?
Mike Ragsdale.
Mike Ragsdale on LinkedIn. Okay, sounds good.
Cool. Well, with that, we will give our final cheers and sign off. And thanks for being on the pod, Rags, and have a safe week.
Thank you, guys.
Catch you next week on episode 22.
Thank you.